So we've just come through a crazy pandemic, and this whole time a lot of people are starting jobs, or they love working from home. And so there's a lot of people wondering, like, how much money does it take to start a business?
Yeah, how can I break free from the mothership? How much dough? How much capital?
I think as we dive into this, you're going to be surprised on what the answer is.
Let's dive. All right, so Nate, obviously you have been and continue to be your own business owner. You're an entrepreneur, right? How much money does it take to start a business? Let's just go.
Well, it depends, because there's several different types of businesses. Let's look at a restaurant. You're going to need a lot of money to start a restaurant.
That is true.
Because you need the building or the lease or whatever, but you need the equipment. You need to hire a whole bunch of staff up front, and you need to buy the food before you can even sell a $10 plate. That just like, cringes.
The upfront overhead is already fixed. Yeah.
If you're new to business, don't start a restaurant. Okay, so the next type of business I thought of that's maybe closer to the type of businesses I like to create, I thought of a landscaper, right? It's based on his expertise, but there still could be a high cost of entry. I mean, what if you need your own backhoe, or you need your trucks or whatever? But I thought of a way you could rent equipment. So if you just have this eye for design and landscaping, you could do it without any money, because you charge people, okay, this is how much it's going to cost. You got to pay me 50% up front or whatever. Go rent the equipment, come and do the work, and then they pay you the rest. So that's a way that you could technically
do it without a deposit on your work, and you have yet to actually invest a dime in yourself.
I love the idea of being able to start a business and prove the concept, prove that you can make a successful business without having to
spend
either you spend your money or go into a ton of debt.
Yeah,
so, but my favorite type of business is something where it's digital, right? And you're not really creating a physical product, but there's so many different ways to create value online. I mean, think about my company. We started out doing website design. Okay, that's a real simple example. Today we produce YouTube channels. We do filming, and so, I mean, there's cost for the cameras and stuff like that. But you probably already have a camera in your pocket or in your purse, or if you want to design websites, you probably already have a computer. If you want to do transcriptions or write articles, I mean, there's so many things.
There's so many user-friendly, like high-tech products and devices that you can really kind of mimic slick, professional, high-budgeted productions on your own, with GarageBand for the kids that are recording music, with your iPhone 12s, 13s, whatever, that have all the great photography chips in them. You know what I mean? It's like you can really, and then you can do all of the post-production yourself. You can create a product or service out of nothing, and there are no hard costs associated with nothing when you think about it.
That's the big point, and kind of the paradigm shift that I hope to help people have is you don't need to have any money to start a business. I didn't have any money to start my business. I look at like startups or what seed investors or angel investors, and I just think about like, oh, they've got this business idea and they're trying to convince them to whatever seed with $1 million or whatever, and I just think that doesn't sound very like. It's probably a very high risk type scenario, and I think about like if somebody.
But when we talk about how much does it take to start a business, then maybe what we're really talking about is how much does it take to start a small business? Is that fair? Because, you know, at an enterprise level, we all know that you've got to find capital. You've got to find venture capitalists. You've got to find,
I don't even understand that world. I mean, it's like, how do you start it? Were you going to start a big corporation with 100 employees?
And chances are anyone watching this ain't that.
Right.
They're the ones that are saying, hey, Nate, you've made $1 off of your stuff that you've done. Yeah, what did it take? And you're basically telling us nothing.
Yeah, like
a good idea and gumption. Who are you, Tom Sawyer?
Like there's a lot of things that you need. Like you might think you need a website. I need a logo design. Oh, I got to get logos printed on shirts, so I need swag. And before I can even open my doors, you know what? You don't need any of that. If you're going to become a pen salesman, guess what? You might need to buy your first pen. And then you go and you sell it. So what did I do when I didn't have my own website? When I sold custom website design, I did not have my own website. I called up people on the phone and said, hey, I've got a brand new idea for a website. I want, I'll sell it for $500. And I sold him a website.
And you didn't even have one yourself.
I didn't have one myself.
Wow. I was going to say, if you became a pen salesman, the best way to do that would be to get a pen just like this one.
From Marriott.
From Marriott. They're free when you check in at the front desk.
Selling the Marriott pens, that'd be awesome.
There's your inventory right there. Just check into a Fairfield Inn and load up. It's all profit. Let's talk about your actual business idea, because you went through a couple different scenarios here, but how do you know if you've got a good one that can maybe ultimately turn a profit?
I mean, that's where the real value is, not getting the money, like how much funding can I have, but the idea is where the real value is. That's why we can't just come up with on the spur of the moment, like, oh, let's do a business for this or do that. It's like, that's where the real value is. And when you can come up with a great idea, how do you know if it's a good idea? Well, you don't know if it's a good idea because you go and you get seed investors. I mean, that means that you can prove that
you've sold it to them.
Yeah, you sold it to them.
Only. Yeah.
But you don't know if the business is going to succeed.
Right.
You have to go out and get a customer. You have to provide a service for them, have them pay for it, and then get feedback that, yes, this is good, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Then you know. Like before I quit my job, I had a job as a telemarketer. It was they sold websites and SEO. So I advertised locally, classifieds here in Utah. I found 2 people that wanted custom website design. And I told them, I can design your websites for $500. This is how I'm going to do it. And they said, sure. And they were both really happy. I had them pay me in installments. And so when I was deciding, should I quit my job, I looked back and in the previous month, I had made $350. And that
At
gave
your job.
At my
As a
business,
telemarketer.
at my test business.
Okay.
And that gave me enough confidence that it's like, you know what, if I put full-time energy into this, I can make a living and make more than I was making in my job.
Yeah.
And I actually took the leap and I did succeed. I was actually behind on a lot of bills, but I got caught back up with my business that I couldn't do in my job. So I want to share a story of a friend of mine. We'll call him John.
Okay.
He won a contest at BYU for like this innovative thing, like coming up with the best business idea and getting angel investors and whatnot. But the ending of that story is he's never owned his own successful business. So he teaches, he's gone out and taught a lot of people how to be successful business owners, and yet he's only been an employee for other business owners, which is kind of interesting. So
well, that's a whole other argument about being an academic versus being a practitioner. You know what I mean? In the world of business.
That's how you know if you have a good idea, is if you can go out and sell something.
Actually go do it. Yeah. It's one thing to sit in the classroom and preach it, but until you've been out, getting your feet wet and your hands dirty, how much does that knowledge really matter? Now you make a good point about you can basically start with thin air and an idea and hard work, but I mean, really, is that the reality? Don't you have to start with some amount of money?
Okay. Well, think about this. If I had $100,000 investment, somebody invested in me, or maybe I've got $100,000 in my bank, and I go and I turn that into a business, and at the end of a year, I've made $110,000. Okay, so that's 10,000 profit.
That's great. You're profitable after a year, which is unheard of.
Now compare that to me taking $1,000 and turning that into 10,000. What would you say is the more valuable business?
Well, obviously, the fact that I've 10x'd my initial investment is the one where I would go.
Yeah. 'Cause, a lot of people would look at it, oh, you made $110,000 with the first example. Like, that's a great business, but it's like such a small increment. But if you can take $1,000 and turn it into 10, that is huge.
Yeah, it's the same amount at the end of the day.
It's the same amount of profit, but the amount of growth and the amount of potential, it means, okay, you started with 1,000. What if you then took that 10,000? You could then grow that into 100.
Yeah.
It's like, and so that's what I look at is leverage. Like, how much profit is actually built into that?
Yeah.
If it takes you $100,000 to earn a $10,000 profit, that's not very efficient.
Okay, and then finally, really, when it comes to money, 1,000 or 100,000, if I don't have it, should I take out a loan? Should I max out my credit cards? Should I go to mommy and daddy? What are we talking
Okay, so think about this. If I were to lend you $100,000 to start a business, you're going to have a real easy time spending that really quick. Like, you're not going to have the discipline on spending it on things that you should, versus if you worked and worked and worked and your business earned this $100,000, how are you going to spend it? Do you see what I'm trying to say there?
You're saying that I'm a bad person.
I gave you two scenarios, Scott version 1 and Scott version 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same philosophy of like people who win the lottery. You hear these stories of people who win $1 million or $5 million or whatever, and a few years later they're bankrupt.
Dead.
They don't have
Yeah.
they don't have that discipline.
Right.
They haven't really figured it out. You know, I've got a 7-figure business, and it's scary for me to even admit that because it's been my goal for such a long time. I look back, and if somebody would have invested, you know, $1 million into my business when I got started, like I would have bought all this stuff that I thought, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. I'm a real legit company here.
Right.
But I think I'm pretty conservative, and I make sure that there's money going into savings and storing up every single month. So.
And it still was only a question of a couple of years. So it wasn't like if you're an impatient person, when am I ever going to make it into 7-digit, you know?
Well, you've only known me for a few years, but I actually started this company 11 years ago, so it's taken me some time.
Well, that's true. But I mean, you stayed flat for the first 9.
Exactly. I do want to add kind of a sub note. The easiest way to get a business loan I have found is through either like PayPal or QuickBooks, but they're only going to give you a loan when you've shown history. So about a year ago, I got a loan for $20,000. I didn't really have to show any proof of anything. I just said, hey, can I get a loan for $20,000? They sent me back, yeah, you'll pay it back over this time period. And I said, great. And I did. And I paid it back within a couple of months.
Was this a traditional financial institution, or was it?
It was through QuickBooks. It was through that company, like Intuit is the company.
Yeah.
So it was a loan through them because that's where I do all my invoicing.
Never even heard of that.
Because I invoice and they see all the money that comes through my account, they see this history and they're like, oh yeah, to lend you $20,000, no problem. And so I mentioned PayPal. PayPal's a great place to start because it takes care of all the different steps required to set up e-commerce on your website. You can just send people a PayPal link. You don't have to worry about the security. It's all taken care of. So if you have a lot of transactions coming into your account through PayPal, and then you go to PayPal and ask for a loan, they'll say, well, yeah, of course, because we see that you've got this history with us. So it's a real easy way to get a loan.
But that's assuming you're already going in business, right?
Right.
I mean, because you have to have those interactions.
It makes sense, right? They see you as a lot lower risk. Why wouldn't they give you a loan in the beginning? Because you haven't proven yourself. You haven't shown what you can do with your own efforts and with your own money.
And are their interest rates, you know, fairly
they're pretty
equal
good.
and
Yeah, pretty good.
competitive? Oh, that's nice. Well, there's an option.
We've got another hot topic we're going to address in the very next episode, so you want to click up there. It's called How to Quit My Job and Start My Own Business. Go watch that now.